Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I would like to share with you all my final thoughts on the HX Outdoors GiantBird. Kind of a weird name because this is actually a small to compact knife, not giant whatsoever. This portion of the video is going to be the quick and dirty on this knife. Do I love it? Do I hate it? Do I recommend it? Do I think it's safe? If you've seen any of the videos surrounding this particular knife that they sent to me for free, they didn't cherry pick. Yeah, very easy to disengage. I don't really recommend it unless you absolutely love the look and the design. I actually take it apart, I sharpen it, I use it, I figure out what makes it tick, and I realize what made it slip. A real quick fix for the factory to do, but nothing that I can do in the home place realistically. A subscriber of mine mentioned that I could carbonize the faces, which is a possibility, but is that kind of effort needed on a sub $50 knife? This is a very inexpensive knife. I think it's about like 30 bucks or something like that. It doesn't cost much, but this can cost you a lot if you are sent to the hospital. It would really suck if you're using this knife and it just comes undone, especially if you're in that forward finger choil. If you put enough pressure, and I guarantee that I could do it, if I put enough pressure with my thumb, I can probably get that to disengage and take a good old fat chunk of my index finger there. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. Again, I have videos showing in great detail the internals of how the lock functions. Kind of looks like a crossbar locking mechanism, but it's not. D2 blade material, G10, all steel hardware components, just a mountain's worth of T6s all over. They're decent T6s, but that's about it. I love the blade shape. I think it's great. It was ground relatively thin behind the edge, decent stock, a good, robust tip. This was actually a joy to use. Ergonomics, this was wonderful. It is quite wide in hand, but now it's a little scary to use, knowing that it could be disengaged just like that. Like I said, it doesn't take much, and that's a little worrisome. So if you'd like to see or join me down below in talking a little bit more in detail about this GiantBird from HX Outdoors. Alrighty, let's get a couple things out of the way first. We will take the weight of this thing. 4 ounces. A little dense, but it's still just a 4-ounce item. It's really not that big of a deal. Size comparisons. Native 5 lightweight. Are we centered up? Kinda. We have the Vacor here by Migron Knives. CJRB Pyrite Light. This is a good full-size, knife right here. I guess the Vision FG by Civivi. Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight. Predator by CMB Made Knives. You get steel pivot collars, all steel hardware components, steel lock. 1 standoff right there. G10 is medium, leaning towards heavy texturization, but it's actually kind of refined feeling. Like, this is good. This is what I would want on like a really big folder, but this is a little guy. So I mean, they're doing nice texturing on the G10. In my video where I do a full breakdown and disassembly, I show you the finishing work of all the internals. There are goods and there are bads. The internals is so, but there's only so much you can expect for a knife that is around 30 bucks or so. Again, this thing doesn't really cost much of anything. Little filler tab with a, I guess, flamed or blue little steel plate that is semi-polish, and that's a nice little pop of color, again with matchy with little pivot collars there. This is not running on any sort of external or separate spring that can be replaced. It is actually part of the steel liners themselves, and they kind of hold this little, it's like 2 little hands that are holding a hardened steel block, and that hardened steel block is then wedged in a space behind the blade to create a shelf. So here's like a side view of the block, here's a tang of the blade. It comes in and sits and then creates, you know, surface tension and lock. But what happens is it's not far in enough for extra surface, you know, contact. It's a little too close to the edge, and with a little bit of vibration or a hard enough impact, it slips and lock breaks. It doesn't actually, you know, break, it could still be engaged and you can still hear it being engaged. And being completely honest with you guys, I actually quite like this locking mechanism. I just wish that it was done right. I'm not a big fan of flipper tabs, right? But the sound, the feel, the smoothness of the brake, there are ceramic bearings within the pivot. There's no traditional detent ball technically anywhere. And it's odd because it does that and it's really, really strong. You need the leverage of the flipper tab, which, mind you, has zero effort of texturing, jimping on that flipper tab. Again, we know what good texturing should look like. A little bit further in, but fatter for more contact surface area, to be a lower profile flipper tab, because that does stick out quite a bit when the knife is in the open, you know, profile. The one that's there, that larger bar right there, that is the actual bar that is being held by the liners that have a spring cut out of them that goes and sits on, you know, the shelf, the tang of the blade. And that little hardened steel piece isn't long enough. It's actually very short and doesn't have enough surface area, which causes it to have that slip, which is very, very unfortunate. I'm really, really disappointed in the fact that this thing fails so damn easily. And kind of going back to the whole situational awareness is very important when using a bladed object of any kind, fixed or folding. Gimmicky locking mechanism, fidgetability locking mechanism, or traditional back lock. Nowadays, you have so many locking mechanisms where your fingers will never have to cross the path of the blade, and it is such a solid locking mechanism. You know, you have these things, and you got the super lock, you have the crossbar lock, here you have the ball lock with the Mannix. You know, like, these are very, very heavily tested locking mechanisms that have been proven to survive, including things like the triad lock here. So this little guy, not typically one of my size comparison size knives, but you know, it's in this class category of size, right? I think we could all agree on that. But technically, backlocks, whether it's how Spyderco executes it or how Cold Steel executes it, you know, technically they are dangerous nowadays in comparison to more modernized locking mechanisms, right? But with some engineering and actual thought behind it, it's actually very safe and very easy, because I will never get cut by something like this because of how the hand positioning and how I go to disengage. Very, very easy to work with, you know, these little knives one-handed. And that's what a good folding tool should be. It should be easy to operate one-handed, left or right, you know? See, nothing's gonna happen to me. But with this, while you can technically, you know, you push out and then you like slam it, it took a while. It would kind of get stuck there and just bounce, and then I had to manually overcome that, you know, rounded area of the tang. But eventually I got used to disengaging, slamming the blade. With gloves, that is not an easy thing to do. This thing is not really working glove approved, mainly because of its overall size, but the excess material of my gloves does get caught up on this very obnoxiously looking flipper tab. And then yeah, just the size, the flipper tab kind of gets in the way, and it's just kind of small, kind of snug. not really that great of a knife for working gloves. Just not a fan of it. Barehanded, it's a little bit of a different story. There is some fidget factor to it. I think that it is a lock that could be done properly, just more testing should have gone behind it. And this is a perfect example of you know, up and coming or slightly newer companies that don't cherry pick. I mean, they could have taken their time to get the one that's literally perfect, you know, and they didn't. They grabbed one off the shelf, threw it in a box, and sent it my way for free. This is costing them, and I don't know what it's going to cost them now in lost sales, but I'm simply just speaking the truth, my experience. They know the risk when it comes to sending things to content creators, and especially me. This could very well just be my particular unit. They only sent me one. I wouldn't expect them to send me any more, right? So I can only kind of go off of what I know and what I've experienced so far. And what I've experienced so far is that I like what I'm seeing, I like what I'm feeling, but the end execution and the end product is very questionable. There's plenty of potential here, for sure. Like, without a doubt, there's plenty of potential. They got an interesting design language. They're trying to do something a little bit different, but maybe a little too different, a little too complicated might be what's hurting the brand right now. I think it would be cool if they just stick with just liner locks. Just do some solid liner locks. Don't steal anybody's design. Don't, you know, kind of like change up the size a little bit or add an extra little swedge to a blade and call it a whole new different freaking thing. No. Just work with frame locks, liner locks. Button locks seem pretty easy to do for a lot of smaller budget like companies. Just simple stuff like that. Maybe just do a regular crossbar lock versus something like this. Again, it could have just been my model. You know, I could be making a stink for nothing. This knife, I do not plan to keep. It will be given away to a Patreon member if you want to win this knife. And again, I'm not trying to I just want to get rid of it realistically. You know, but I want to give it to a Patreon member so that they can actually use it and kick it around, and like the people who are willing to actually support me financially for me to continue doing what I'm doing, and, you know, aid in the growth of the channel so I can get more recognition from brands and get cool stuff in. Like, I would love to still continue working with HX Outdoors when they do better things and they're going to grow. There are many companies that within my time here on YouTube have absolutely exploded. Remet, for example, is one of them. Remet is a company that at one point I had done, I was a channel with the most amount of videos on their products. And look at where they're at now. They're freaking huge. They are on damn near every freaking big YouTube channel, sending them hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of free product. And they started from stuff like this. Questionable things with side-to-side play, lock rock, like weird hardware, and, you know, things that just weren't that good. HX Outdoors has that potential. I'm not trying to shit on them and say like, oh, they're like all their stuff is bad. There is potential. I believe there is. I'm trying to stay positive about this, but I want to see better from them. I want a little bit more time in engineering and development, a little bit more time in testing. I am more than willing to take on whatever they have and actually test it here at home to be able to give them actual valuable feedback from the community, because it seems as though a lot of people that do actually stumble upon my channel and that watch my things as long-winded as I can be, a lot of them seem to side with my views on things, and it makes me happy. It makes me feel, you know, validated, even though sometimes I feel like I'm crazy. I'm sitting in my garage for hours talking to my phone, hoping that it'll, you know, affect somebody positively in the future. So, breaking the third wall, is that how that works? I don't know. It will be given away for Patreon members if you're interested in winning any free knives. I've been collecting a handful of free knives so that eventually I get into the routine of being able to give away a free knife every single month. That is my goal. That has been my goal from the beginning. As the channel grows, I will eventually get to the point where I'm giving away a knife of whatever value every week. That's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to give away stuff because I wouldn't be here without your guys' support. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it educational. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed already, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing because I have plenty more videos and content coming your guys' way. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.